Hi everyone, welcome to episode 7 of Stay on Your Bike podcast and part 2 of Matti Lehikoinen's podcast. We kind of chatted away for a while there, Matti, so we've had to split this into two, but there's still loads more to talk about. So welcome back. How are you doing?
Thanks, I'm doing good. Yeah, just another day.
Another
Let's
day.
talk some bike riding.
Yep. Brilliant. Well, we left it off last time, talking about the Honda and your 2007 season where you finished second behind Sam. You had that incredible ride at Chambéry also. So let's pick it up from there and carry on.
Yeah, I think so going to 2007, that was the final year of Honda, and we talked about, some of the possibly bringing the bike to production, but then the project got put on hold and eventually just it never happened. Or it never was put on hold, but it it kind of towards the end of the year the realization hit, and okay, it's the team's not going to happen, and then I started looking, and we all started looking elsewhere.
Was there a
And
reason for the team ending? What did you get told?
I don't actually remember. It was just the Honda's bringing the project to an end. There wasn't any given reason that okay, we're running out of money, or they are deciding that uh, this is it. I think originally was like an R&D project to Honda, and I think somebody internally approached that okay, we should develop a mountain bike and maybe use some of that technology and what they have learned from mountain bikes, and they could possibly bring it to the motocross bikes and motorbikes. That I don't know for a fact, but
Do you think that
I
would Do you think if that project had have happened now, with how big the e-bike market is, do you think that might have been a different story and they would have just adapted the bike into an e-bike model, for instance, or do you not think that would have happened either?
it's hard to tell. If you look at the bike now, it I think it would make an absolutely phenomenal e-bike,
Yeah,
because it almost, you know, um, uh, and I think e-bikes are still, in the early stage, and they
sure.
have a lot of growth pains, and if you look at the current e-bike, it's just a conventional or acoustic bike with a motor slapped to the bottom of it and a battery on a down tube.
Yeah,
So it's still running off a conventional drivetrain,
yeah,
which isn't ideal considering the forces and the torque that the motor has. And so there's a lot of weak spots on the current e-bikes.
yeah,
And
yeah,
if the modern e-bike would be a gearbox bike, and the battery located to, and the battery technology being or getting improved, and becoming lighter and smaller and more compact, I think Honda would make an absolutely amazing e-bike.
yeah, I
And
agree.
who knows, maybe they take some of the drawings out of the wardrobe, and look, let's
Yeah,
we've had this project in the past. Let's now the time is right. Let's make an e-bike.
yeah, that'd be really cool.
So with the shower suspension,
Yeah,
I would definitely buy one.
yeah. And yeah, true, it'd be a phenomenal bike.
Yeah.
Um,
So going back to e-bike still a little bit. I don't think we've seen what the e-bike of the future will look like.
no,
It
no.
they will change a lot. in, let's say, in 10 years time. They will be
Sure.
probably going to gearboxes and who knows what.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think, like you say, they're amazing to ride now, but I think the kind of like the downhill bikes were maybe not the suspension, but the actual bikes themselves will advance really quickly over the next 10 years, I reckon.
Yeah, they yeah, for sure.
And so obviously, was that a big blow to all you guys that project was coming to an end, or did you kind of know about it earlier on before the end of the season?
We kind of knew about it earlier on into the season. So I started having conversations with different teams, I believe, like halfway through the year almost, like maybe July-ish. So yeah, just past the halfway point,
Yeah.
with a couple of different teams. And yeah, ever since I was a kid, like, and watching the Eurosport, my Intense M1 was the bike,
Yeah.
and it was the most iconic and the best bike. And I really, really, really wanted to ride for Intense one day. That was like my dream, to be on an Intense factory bike. And
Brilliant.
then in 2007, it ended up happening. So that was something special.
And did like obviously the Intense M1's an iconic bike, of course. And going back to watching Sean Palmer on the bike on the video that you wore out, the VHS there. But were you as excited to ride an Intense as you were the Honda bike?
Um, oh, it was exciting because we'd get to be on something which was fresh.
Yeah.
Um, but definitely not for the good. The realization hit quite hard pretty early on when I noticed like the suspension wasn't that great. Like we were on the Manitou suspension
Yeah, and that was
and
the Manitou
Travis.
Travis, yeah.
Yeah.
And
And then I don't remember what the rear shock was called, but at least that wasn't blowing up like the Fox. It
yeah,
was just, you know,
not as
we were
plush as the
blowing through
Fox.
cartridges on the forks. Like, if you'd bottom out the fork hard enough, like you were pushing it and it would just blow up.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't racing at a high level at that time, but I was still riding bikes, riding downhill bikes, and I don't think that fork was as good as the Dorado.
Okay, yeah, it definitely wasn't quite as good as the Showa fork.
I imagine, yeah. But
Oh,
I think if
yeah.
I never rode that Showa fork, and I can imagine it was incredible. But I reckon if you'd have maybe been on the Dorado with you know mechanics working on the fork and servicing it, regularly, it wouldn't have been as big a jump down. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To this day, I still think that Dorado was, as good as any other fork I've ridden. Uh,
Okay, yeah. I never had a chance to ride that. I got put on the put on a Travis, and it was all downhill from there. Like
yeah,
until because we were actually that was probably the first time when we get to work together, even though we were on the different teams. But I was on the Intense MS team run by Lucas Heider and
yeah,
Marcus Stockel.
yes,
And then, but we were running more or less similar equipment. Like we had the
yes,
same suspension, the same frame, but all
yeah,
the rest was, a bit
bit different.
different.
But
So,
but unfortunately, right, before the season, you while you were filming, I think it was while you were filming your
yeah,
segment,
yeah, that's right.
you had a crash and broke your back.
That's right. Yeah. And that was so the riding high to finishing the season on the high didn't last that long, because it was only a matter of days that I ended up, going filming and ended up breaking my back. And that was, yeah, it was a pretty big blow. Like, looking back now, I would say that was the turning point on my career, hands down. Like
Yeah.
I was never quite as good as I was in 2007 ever after that.
Yeah.
And yeah, just because I ended up getting in, just having a string of injuries
Yeah.
after that, like injury after another. And
Yeah.
I probably, by the time 2008 season started, I think I should have a little bit more time off.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's easy to say now, but I think the outcome possibly could have been a bit different. Like, it would have been better to take a month or two off and then finish off the season strong, rather than coming in too early and then ended up like re-injuring myself again and again and again. So
Yeah.
um,
I think that happens to a lot of people. Obviously, you're when you're at that very high end, top level that you're at, and you have an injury, and then you miss out on training. You've not your confidence. You're coming back from a really big injury like that. It's impossible to just drop back in at the same level, isn't it? Because while you're away, you're getting effectively getting slower. You're not as confident because you're not winning and doing well at the races, and then all the people are at the top of the game. Their confidence is growing because they've been getting those results that you were getting before, and
yeah,
to try and rush back in when you're not 100%. I've seen, now I'm older. I've seen that happen to you and some and other riders I've worked with, and it's just it's not the right thing to do. But as a racer, you feel like you've got to get back as soon as possible to honor your contract and do your best for your team, haven't you?
yeah, exactly. And I I remember maybe seeing an interview or something like that. That I was I said something like, it's not like I'm gonna set my results backwards. So I finished second. I'd won a World Cup, and I wanted to carry on where I left off.
Of course.
Where realistically, I should have said, like, okay, it took me years to get to that point, and then I was recovering from a broken back for ages.
Yeah.
Uh, I should have set myself a goal like, okay, if I'm top 20,
Yeah.
that's remarkable.
Yeah.
I I was eighth or ninth on the first World Cup that the Travis didn't blow up.
Yeah.
So when I had like a decent race and the fork didn't blow up or my bike didn't break, I was eighth and ninth in Andorra,
Okay.
and I was happy about that. But the first thing I thought is like, okay, I'm gonna one up this result in Fort William.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do better,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna get on a podium, which was a huge mistake.
Yeah.
I should have just like gradually build up and built the momentum and
Yeah.
and and being a little bit more patient. But yeah, like I said so many times, it's easier to say now. But
Yeah.
maybe maybe if there was somebody that would have said to me like, look, and explained it to me like, hey, take it easy, take your time.
Yeah.
And maybe, I don't remember, but maybe you've said that to me when you were my teammates, where I kind of took it personally, like, what are you on about? um where you were trying to do the right thing, but
Yeah.
I was just being like, stubborn and having the competitive effort, athleticism mind and
Yeah.
and just, you know, wanting to get good results. And I wasn't ready. I physically wasn't ready for that.
No.
And I wasn't ready physically to ride. I knew how fast or what it would take to ride a DH bike fast, but I physically wasn't able to do it
Yeah.
for, you know, maybe more than like a minute and a half.
Sure. Yeah.
And
And then
yeah,
and then
one
that
thing led. Sorry.
yes, and then obviously the more that doesn't happen, and because you're trying to push it and get those results back quicker than is actually possible, you get
Yeah,
more frustrated and more pissed off with yourself, and then you make more and more mistakes, and yeah,
yeah, 100%. That's well said, and that's exactly what ended up happening. And yeah, like let's say I still had okay results, but I wasn't I was enjoying it, but I was very frustrated and angry,
yeah,
and I couldn't find the joy of, you know, getting a top 10. I was super mad at myself,
hmm,
and, you know, just thinking and trying to find ways, or whether the bike is not right, or am I not fit enough, or, you know, I'm making mistakes. And then I ended up riding tens, and it
yeah,
just it's a vicious, how do you say,
yeah, vicious,
vicious cycle
yeah,
when you get into that. And it's really difficult to get out of it.
yeah,
And so yeah, like I think the following, oh, that 2008 year, I was 20th overall.
yeah. So I mean, still a decent result.
Yeah, considering that I missed two. mm, I think I missed the two last round because I ended up breaking both of my arms
in
in
in um
in
in
cat.
Australia.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, in them stupid whoops.
yeah.
Yeah, remember.
And one of the one that I hit with, or put my hands to, was reinforced with concrete. So uh breaking my both arms was actually a lot more severe injury than breaking my back, because
Yeah,
um it took a long time before I was able to like ride my bike at all,
yeah.
or let alone like ride downhill and have enough strength. And I never regained the strength that I had,
All that.
yeah, probably before that. So um yeah,
And
so
so how many seasons were you riding intense on MS for?
uh I actually rode intense only 1 year. So I signed a 2-year contract with MS.
Yeah,
um but then there was another financial crisis, and so the contract with intense was up um after the first year of me being under contract with MS.
yeah,
And then Intense had to, you know, it was yeah, it was towards the end of the 2008 season, and then Intense had to pull the plug on the sponsorship. They couldn't afford to do it.
yeah.
And then MS ended up signing
Evil.
with Evil, yes, that's right. And then Stevie Smith uh, and Philip Polk came to the team,
Yeah.
which was actually, with them too. If I could go back in time to that MS Evil bus, and we had like once this absolutely phenomenal like bike park road trip, and it's still to this day one of the funnest memories, because we did like some really cool stuff with the team. And Stevie was something else. Like he was,
Yeah.
I thought when he first got on the team, like he was just really like cocky and arrogant, and some of the stuff that he said was just like, whoa, you're just a kid. Like
Yeah.
you can't say stuff like that. And but he was he was so determined
Yeah.
to get better.
Yeah.
And he such a wild unit. Like
Yeah.
he lived life to the fullest.
Yeah. He was a
And
larger than life character.
100%.
Yeah.
And like some of the stuff that he he was the bravest man that I've probably ever known.
No
Like
way.
he wasn't afraid of anything.
Yeah.
And like he was in he was such a good dude,
Yeah.
incredibly like humble and
Yeah.
friendly, and there's only like just nice things that I could say of him. And like first, the trips that we had in uh, South America, no, South Africa, like first team trip was so fun. And like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Good
that
times.
that goes. Some of the stuff that we did is just, yeah, it's definitely not publishable, but like we had so much fun. And
Oh,
I miss Stevie a lot.
yeah. Many people, I think anybody who spent a lot of time with Stevie and he gave he made that impression on everyone who hung out with him, and he's sorely missed. Not obviously not just in the mountain bike world, but with all his friends and family. It's a huge loss.
Yeah, it
Shame.
was such a, yeah,
But he lived an amazing short life.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, going, yeah, to yeah, I'm a bit speechless here and getting like a bit of a tear in my eye because
Yeah, I'm sure.
some of the stuff, it was just to remember him. And
Yeah.
like some of the stuff that we did, it was just incredible. And I'm sure anybody that who's ever spent more time with Stevie can relate. And that he was it was always up for something like that would be either dangerous, and that you would be like, you know,
Yeah.
laughing a lot. So it was a good time.
Yeah.
Uh,
The sport needs more
yeah,
Stevie Smiths.
yeah, definitely. So yeah, rest up, brother, and
Yeah.
hope he's doing all right up there
Yeah.
somewhere. So but yeah, 08, 09.
And so just just for all the other the bike geeks out there, you've gone from the Honda to the Intense that you'd always dreamed about riding, and then you're onto this new Evil bike. How did the Evil bike compare to the Intense and the Honda? Because
Well,
there was a
I
lot of
wasn't
hype behind Evil when it launched.
yeah, there was a lot because Iron Horse, yeah, Iron Horse just um I think stopped making bikes or gone bankrupt on.
Yeah.
And Dave Vigo designed the bike, and it was all new, and it was talked to be the next big thing in Iron Horse.
Yeah.
So there was definitely a lot of hype around the brand, and they were really like cool people, and they were pushing to improve the bike. But obviously, like anybody that's raced on the top level and got given like the first prototype bike, it it will have its faults.
Teething problems. Yeah.
Yeah, just so yeah, we did have a lot of problems in the beginning, just just bending linkages and cracking frames. And but it is like you speak to anybody, and that's what it is like to develop a bike. But
Yeah.
um I was pretty upset about it because I'd wanted to like have another season and sort of develop and build up on the bike, and now I was again having to learn
Start
another
again.
bike. Yeah, so pretty much start again. Yeah, we were on good suspension and better tires, and so overall we had a lot better parts and components than we had the first year.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the bike had some geometry issues. Like the first 3 or 2 races we had, and the bottom bracket was like ridiculously low.
I remember, yeah.
And yeah, and it was like impossible to pedal. It rode really well on a straight line as long as you didn't need to pedal. But as soon as you had to turn and get out of a corner or pedal, the bike was like super sluggish, and it was just like, you just parked it into a berm.
Right.
And Stevie really liked it, but he was like still like young and didn't have much to reflect on.
Yeah.
And another thought, a
And a
funny thing.
brute strength he had as well.
Yeah, exactly. And the suspension curve on the bike was like extremely progressive.
Mhm.
So it had a bit of like a tendency to like buck you over.
Right.
Um, and especially me coming from 2 broken arms
Yeah.
and riding a bike which was super progressive, and Stevie having like a completely different riding style to myself, it just didn't quite suit my riding style.
Yeah.
I still, once again, I had top tens on that bike. I
Yeah.
think I had a few eights, and I had good results.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't, but I think with like a little bit of tweaking and more work and having more time on that bike, I think it would have been quite good.
Yeah.
Um, but I was still pretty much the whole year. I just wanted to get off the bike.
No.
I wanted to get back on the tens, and like I just wasn't happy with it. Um, and I had, the team. I enjoyed being in team and and being with the crew. What we
Yeah, they
had,
always had a great setup.
yeah. So that was all good, but then yeah, I think we started talking towards the end of our wait, and yeah, ended up because that was the only intense team, and
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
I was seeking elsewhere, and then we started chatting, and then let's say that I finished my racing career um, under the tent of Chain Reaction Cycles team.
Right. So yeah, so we were chatting, and then we came to an agreement where you were going to come and ride for Chain Reaction Cycles team on the Nukeproof bikes, which I was, super excited about, and was looking forward to working with you. Um,
We
I
actually
guess
rode in tents the first year.
sorry, what did I say? Nukeproof then?
Yeah, you did. Yeah,
Sorry, right, I'll do that
oh,
again.
lots.
Sorry. Yeah, so obviously we got chatting, and I was running the Chain Reaction Cycles team, and we were using the Intense bicycles, which is a brand I'd worked with for years. So I knew you were a big fan of Intense as well, so it was exciting for me to bring you onto the team. But I guess it was quite a big change in team structure and the way we ran things from the MS team to our team.
Yeah, that was something else. It was definitely like going from MS, having this big rock star bus and like the big team set up, and to a couple of easy ups and all packed in the Vauxhall. It wasn't an Astra, but it was, what was the first team van? Vauxhall.
No, we had so this is 2009. We had the big van was the Volkswagen Crafter,
Yeah.
and then we had a Renault Traffic, I believe.
Yeah, that's the one. And then you wrote it off, maybe.
No, that was the Vito a few years later.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah, it was how would I say it? Getting to an organized mess.
That's
Like
funny
everything was
because
bit unorganized, but you were just winging it and things just always fell into place. So
Sam described it as organized chaos.
yeah, that's that's spot on. Yeah.
A bit, a bit like the podcasts as well.
Yes. So it just goes to show a lot from your personality. But everything just worked. Like, yeah, maybe we didn't have the all the flights booked and the flight itinerary sent for the whole year in March, but rather than like a week before. But we always ended up getting to the races,
Yeah, we got
having a
there.
place to stay.
We always had a place to stay. We had the parts, we had the bikes, we had
Yes, we had, food to fill our stomachs and
yeah,
get re-energized. And
and a few
yeah,
laps.
and a lot of laughs. First big trip that we did was probably Sea Otter in 2010.
Yeah,
And it was me, Dave, you, Kavarik, Claire, and maybe Paul,
yeah,
our mechanic at the time.
yeah.
And
He was your
I,
mechanic, wasn't he?
yeah, yeah, mine and Claire's. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
And my abs were just sore from all the laughter. Like you were just like, it was a whole different team atmosphere and uh, just just different environment. And maybe it was first time that I got to be in a team with British. So like the culture and the humor, and it was just a lot different.
yeah,
Like I'd been in a team with, yes, like native speaking. There'd been Americans and Australians and South Africans and maybe no, not Kiwis maybe,
yeah,
but I'd never been surrounded or traveled with anybody from the UK, and and it was just a different culture. Like um and I knew English already at the time to some extent, and it was just a good laugh. It was such a good laugh,
yeah,
and we definitely had a lot of fun. We did the first American trip, and then we got stuck because of the ash cloud. So we
yeah.
got stuck in California.
That's right. Yeah,
Went to stay at Jeff's house for um, an extra week, and yeah,
yeah,
then we went to Ireland. I got to see the Irish for the first time, and that was also a cultural difference. Like
yeah,
working with the Irish, they have and only maybe a year sort of later, and as I get to know the Irish a bit more, they got completely different humor again and different culture and funny little clever humor, which is, if you don't know it, they can like really pick on you without you even knowing that they're like really taking the piss out of you.
yeah,
So yeah, it was definitely a good time,
yeah,
and I missed those days.
yeah. They were good times, and as well as all the fun we had, we were trying to do our best as well at the races, and you had some really good results for us as well.
Yeah, again, once again, so I was still like, but I did get injured
Yeah,
again at the end of '08. So I was again coming back from an injury.
yeah,
And then me and Rory, we went to California to stay in Jeff Stieber's house, so the
yeah,
owner of Intense,
yeah,
and with their family. And I ended up breaking my hand in the California training trip.
yeah.
So I kept that as a secret because I didn't, I was sort of, by now I was ashamed of getting injured.
Injured. Yeah,
Yeah, and I just didn't want to deal with talking with anybody about injuries. And so, I was mending an injury again, but I kept it, to myself. The team knew about it, but I don't think anybody else knew about that. And it was right before the season. So, well, yeah, I did, have time enough to recover, but then so I did all the World Cups, and yeah, still had some top tens, and
Yeah.
I think I'm pretty sure that I was like seventh overall going to the final round.
Yeah.
And I remember I had really good qualifiers. I qualified maybe seconds or thirds or,
Yeah.
like right up there, but then I quite couldn't put it together in the
Yeah.
finals.
Yeah.
And once again, I think we had some components that could have possibly been better.
Yeah.
Like we were definitely having, and that year we had Champri and we had Val di Sole.
Yeah.
And those were like extremely difficult track or like tough tracks for breaks.
Yeah.
And for those tracks, we were having some brake issues.
Yeah. I remember.
And like the bottom part of Val di Sole, like the last steep shoot, I wasn't riding my bike anymore. I was just like
Holding on.
hanging on because, yeah, your hands are blown to bits by the time anyway. But when somebody takes the brakes off your bike and throws you down the mountain, it was dangerous and it was
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah.
And it was especially that like the last steep shoot and where uh, Sam rode like sped up
Yeah.
the last bit, and then probably traveled the distance of 100 meters on 3 jumps. Just
Yeah.
went boing 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 to
Yeah.
that right hand corner
Yeah.
before the ski jump. It was, yeah, that's another story. Like oh wait, I missed the worlds and I was watching practice. And Sam was maybe one of the very, very last riders to do his practice run on the race morning. And I was sit and watching practice, like right at the bottom. And then when Sam came down on his final practice run, I'm pretty sure that I've never witnessed anybody ride their bike that fast. And like I was standing right by the tree, and I was just blown away. But
Yeah.
so that particular section was frightening to ride on the brakes that we were having
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah. 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 I remember it was always, obviously our team was mainly funded by Chain Reaction Cycles. As you know, Intense couldn't afford to put a lot of money into the program, but they made all the frames for us. And then, at that time, a lot of companies wouldn't work with us, even though they liked our program and liked all the riders and everything. They wouldn't work with our program because it was Chain Reaction Cycles.
Yeah,
So, my job to get the sponsors on board was really difficult.
I
I had good
remember that because,
relationships with a lot of people in the industry,
yeah,
but they said, look, we just can't be seen to be promoting your team, which is called Chain Reaction Cycles at that time, because, a lot of, they were being so successful and their business model was working, selling products all over the world. But then, companies like SRAM and big companies, if they'd have supported us, they were getting grief off distributors and shops all around the world. So, we had to work. I had to try and piece together sponsors that were willing to work with us, and I was grateful for that. But some things, some years just didn't work out, and yeah, I mean, looking back, I don't really know how I would have been able to change that. But I always felt really bad as a team manager that you guys were struggling with certain things, because as racing myself, I know how important it is.
yeah, and I understood like the situation that you were in, and um, I think I got on with some of the stuff that we had maybe better than others.
Yeah.
and others got better on with it than I did. But so yeah, we had a pretty big team, and for you to put on with all of us and having to deal with all the different cultural difference and language barriers and you know relationship dramas and all that, like, so uh, and then organize everything, cook for us. uh, it's a huge task.
Mm.
It's a huge work, and you don't understand it until you kind of have to do it uh, yourself for somebody else. Like, this isn't just spreadsheets and a couple of emails. This is pretty
Oh,
difficult. Like, there's so many variables
yeah.
and unexpected things that can come out of nowhere, and you just got to deal with a lot of things. So, uh, and having saying that, you being as organized as you are, I think you did a remarkable job.
Well, yeah, pretty much winging it, but I appreciate that. But
Yeah,
I did try in my own disorganized way. I was trying my best for all of you. I wanted you all to win. And looking back now, I'd have probably changed a few things. Some years we had, because we never had a huge budget for extra staff like other teams have had. So, like you said, I had to kind of split myself up and do a lot of things, and so probably I didn't do any of the things 100%, really well, but I kind of did my best. Uh, I mean, looking back, it might have been we probably had too many riders, and I was
yeah,
trying to help people out, but
yeah.
in
The
saying that,
first year in the team was it 8 on 7 riders. It was huge
we had the
team.
four cross guys as well, didn't we?
Oh yeah, that's right. So we had the Falkers guys, and then we had 6 downhillers or 6.
It was
We
it
had
was
Rory, Matt, Simmons,
Rory.
Kovarik,
Yeah,
Claire, myself, Julian Camillini. So we had 6 downhill riders.
that's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm.
So
Yeah, too many.
yeah, exactly. And we had 2 mechanics
Yeah,
and 2 4 cross riders
yeah.
and a
How the hell
sprinter
did it
band.
cook food for all that?
I don't know. I think we ate, and we did eat. We did end up eating out quite a bit,
Probably
but
halfway
then
through the
definitely
season.
after that year, somebody said like the budget that we spend on food was maybe a tad too much. We could have
Yeah,
hired another mechanic
yeah,
um, on the restaurant expenses.
yeah, probably. And Rory would have probably been quite happy just going to McDonald's.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
drinking Monster.
yeah. But I mean, looking back at that team roster. I mean, we probably didn't quite get the results. We that everybody was capable of if they were at the best. But everybody had different issues going on, but it was a pretty phenomenal team roster, to be fair. With yourself and Chris Kovarik, and Claire got some good results, and
Yeah,
Julian was super fast, and Rory and Matt both were capable of good results. We had
I,
some
I think
great,
we all scored a top 10 that year.
yeah,
I think so, because Matt was maybe, I was ninth, and Matt might have been, Simmons might have been 10th in Leo Gang.
yeah,
Rory, Rory and Chris were top 10 in
shot free,
Chambly.
yeah,
Um, I was maybe, yeah, Valdisol, I did pretty good,
yeah,
just outside the top 10.
yeah,
And I think Julian might have scored a 7th somewhere.
yeah, yeah.
If
Julian was super fast. I think the previous year he was, but he kept like having issues in the finals, but he was, pretty much always in the top 10. And, he had some incredible qualifying results as well. And
Yeah,
then
like
Julian just got a few niggling injuries, one after the other as well. Not
yeah.
not the injuries that you had, but just niggling injuries that affected him.
Yeah, for sure. And then also some bike drama, like we all did. But there's so many variables and like mechanical parts on a DH bike that it
Yeah,
and and the bikes have evolved. So they were still having like growth pains at the time. But
yeah,
having that roster nowadays with five riders capable of top 10, it'll cost you a fortune.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
It's
you'd
mad,
have to
isn't
have
it?
like a massive semi trailer truck setup.
Yeah,
And we were doing that out of the back of a Sprinter.
yeah. Yeah, it's pretty mad when you
Yeah.
think back on it. And then, so obviously, unfortunately, you didn't get the result with the injuries and all the other things that were going on. You didn't quite get, the results that we all knew you were capable of on, especially on the intense bike and the team. But still did an incredible job for the team. And then you know, we started to use Nukeproof components on that chain reaction now on the brand, and we started introducing some of the components on the bike, and then we went uh, and the decision was made that we were going to make a downhill bike with Nukeproof and develop it with the team. So, how did you feel about that at the time?
That was a bit of a shock because I'd just gone to, well, switch to another team in the hopes of being on the intense.
Yeah,
And then but it, it got him introduced like the idea. We kind of got to know it quite early on. Like we tested the bike in Alpe d'Huez at the Mega, which was halfway through the year.
yeah,
And I remember seeing the bike at the CRC headquarters
yeah.
when we first went there. Like Michael Cohen, who was, one of the head people
Hmm.
in charge of the Nukeproof brand at CRC and CRC at the time. Like at the time, they already had the mule or like the first prototype that Michael was riding, if
Yeah,
I recall. And then Michael was riding it and you were riding it at the Mega.
yeah,
And then I rode it as well. So at least this time I got to try the bike. And, I was in the conversation that, okay, we're going to be switching possibly
yeah.
to nuke proof bikes. And it was pretty rough looking, put together
First one.
thing. Yeah, the first one, but like bolted reinforcement braces and
Yeah.
a bit of hacksaw job here and there, and but it rode surprisingly well, how considering what it looked like.
Yeah,
Oh
I got the same impression. I mean,
yeah,
the tubing for that bike, like I did the geometry after riding, obviously working with intents and stuff. So geometry wise, I think it was pretty good. I rode a few when we went to um Whistler the year before, and I didn't have a bike. I don't know if you remember. I rode loads of different bikes while I was there just to get an idea on stuff and geometry and the feeling of other downhill bikes. So
mm,
and then the tubing for that bike, basically a guy that I worked with on the first design of it, Brant Richards, he sent me this little catalog from the factory where we were going to get the bike made of these little tiny you know little tiny square pictures of tubing, and I kind of had to
yeah,
choose what tubing we should have to make the bike. That's how crazy it was. There was no like CAD drawings and mad engineering going on. And then obviously Dale and the engineers sort of made the suspension with the the single pivot linkage to give us the suspension characteristics that we kind of asked for. But like you said, when it first turned up and we saw it, and it was like, oh my god! But
Yeah,
it rode surprisingly well.
it did. And then from the first prototype that we got to ride, then the next generation bikes that we ended up racing where, with the better tubing, and they were like a massive leap ahead from what the first were. And we didn't ended up, it was maybe a little bit like over engineered because we didn't break that many things
Yeah,
or hardly any.
yeah,
And like the first frames that we got in San Remo and rode, I think we raced them for the first part of the season,
yeah,
if I can recall correctly. And I think, because obviously I went on to the the bikes that I had at home after 11. Some of the frames are still floating around.
yeah. I mean, they were pretty well made, tough bikes,
Yeah,
weren't they?
yeah. And then when there was something, when the frame was bottoming out, it would like pull the swing arm together
Yeah,
and like bent the dog bone linkages, and
yeah,
then we just like bolted like a crossbar to the front of the seat tube,
yeah,
just to like reinforce it. So it's like pretty basic stuff that we had to do, like, but there weren't that many issues that we had with the bike.
yeah.
We changed the leverage ratio a little bit. That was and then I was struggling with the sizing a bit. I was kind of in between the medium and the large, and the small medium was too small and the large was too big.
Well, a funny story, Matty, that the original medium that I drew up, which which was the size of the medium large we made you, it, Michael and Dale said that was too big for a medium.
Oh,
So
okay.
the bikes got made smaller than I originally wanted.
Yeah.
And then we had to, so then I asked for them to make the medium large frames, which is what you ended up on.
Yeah. And then soon as I got that custom size frame, like my riding just changed like a
Yeah.
night and day.
And
And
you ended up at the World Cup finals in Val di Sole. You ended up eighth, I think, seventh or eighth.
yeah, that's yeah, seventh or eighth. And like so I was kind of like, I've really gelled with the bike, but I wasn't quite like, something wasn't, you know, it maybe if I would have had like somebody telling me, like a riding coach, like having to adapt to the bike, like if I'd changed the way of I was riding, I should have been like a little bit more over the front
Mm-hmm.
in order to have my weight distribution more central. Like I was, because I felt the bike was too big, I was sort of hanging off the back, but then I didn't have any confidence and grip on the front.
Yeah,
And so I was kind of always like battling that a little bit.
sure.
And then nobody had, or at least we didn't have, the offset cups that we could have sort of
Yeah,
shortened the reach,
yeah,
even though it had a 1.5 head tube. So it could have been made, but we just, you know, didn't come up with the idea.
yeah.
And we had like some headset cups that we were playing around with.
Mm.
And then once, yeah. But once again, it was like a, early stages and just the developing a new bike.
Yeah,
and and then yeah, and then once we got it right, and we had those gold linkages which had a
yeah,
different leverage ratio, and
yeah.
that really changed it a lot
Mm-hmm.
for the better.
Yeah,
And I think we were playing around with a different length swing arms,
yeah,
and not sure whether or not we went for the longer or shorter, but
yeah,
um, looking back now, the bikes were still tiny
Yeah,
compared to
no,
they
it's
are
crazy,
nowadays.
really.
Like, yeah, it would be like a no-brainer to be on a large frame now, but it
Yeah,
still would be quite small.
yeah. But
Um,
at the time, that seemed huge.
yeah, and so yeah, as soon as things were starting to, look really good, and I finished the World Cup season and World Champs injury free, and I was so relieved, and that I was healthy. I was going healthy into the off season. I was having a good momentum,
Yeah,
and and yeah, feeling just super good on a bike.
yeah, yeah.
And
You were starting to, you know, be super fast and confident again, and incredible, really, that you did all that on the Nukeproof, the way it was made and developed, and credit to everyone who was involved in that, because it wasn't a huge company with loads of different bike designers and engineers. It was, it's pretty phenomenal, and for you to get that result was incredible, really.
yeah, definitely, like in such a short time,
Yeah,
from like a you know a put together garage frame
yeah,
with kind of trial and error, uh, you know way of doing things, and to having like a production. No, but no, they didn't sell those. We raced them, and then it only came for sale
the following
the
year, yeah,
following year. So they weren't production bikes. That's right. Um. So yeah, like season was done, and I remember we stayed at I stayed at your place, and we went to ride a bit of motocross, and just do like off season stuff. And then I went home. I was home for a few weeks, and uh there was a race in Sweden that I was sort of like, oh, cool, let's do a race, because I was feeling good on the bike, and
yeah.
yeah, it wasn't anything I necessarily needed to do, but I chose to do it. And my friend asked me to go with him, and I'm like, yeah, cool, that would be fun, and let's go race. And that that was a huge, well, another turning point in my life. Almost died on that trip, and yeah, that definitely had a really bad ending for that season. So
Cool. So let's pick up with, obviously you've just said about going to Sweden, and then uh, tell us a bit about your what happened in your injury there.
yeah, so it was the 2009 11. It
Yeah,
was the Scandinavian champs, and we had a good practice. The track was relatively simple, and like nothing out of the ordinary, like gnarly or anything.
yeah. I remember
And
you speaking to you about it when you were there, and you were saying it was good and stuff.
yeah, so did practice, that went all well, and then did seating, and yeah, all sound and sweet. We're just hanging out and having time, just riding bikes. And then uh race run was going fine. So the accident happened during my race run in the finals, probably around halfway down the track. And I can recall that I had like a slight moment where I like lost concentration a little bit. And then I think it's maybe 100 meters, 200 meters down from where I just had like a little something flicked in my head, and I thought about something else, and then I just had a freak accident. And uh it reminded me very much of Jackson Goldstone's crash.
Yeah,
Like when I saw it live on TV, I had to look elsewhere. I was just like, I
yeah,
saw my life flashing through my eyes, and I thought he's dead. Like
yeah,
if you and I literally relived the moment of my crash, and it was identical that to that. So I just like endo hit something, got bucked over the bars, but I was still like riding the bull out, and then unfortunately hit a tree with like head on, and that was my helmet collapsed, the mouth guard just snapped in two, and I um, um, now it gave me like post-traumatic stress disorder because I remember such drastic things from the accident. And but the positive is that I didn't die there and then. Like my heart didn't stop right there, and I didn't suffocate and didn't have a brain injury, because the way I hit, the the forces obviously went first through my head, through my helmet, so that broke, and then like like my lower jaw and my upper jaw got crushed, and then like my nose got like broken into, and so all like my facial bones pretty much broke, and that took a lot of the impact, which, even though it sounds absolutely horrific, and that's what it was, it likely saved my brain.
Yeah.
Because all the forces were like distributed to the bones, and they,
Broke the impact, basically.
yeah, exactly. And I remember like lying on the floor and talking to somebody who came up to me, which is this uh I think he's a Kiwi, Steve. No, I don't remember his name, but I've met the guy, and he lives in Sweden.
I know
And
him. Yeah.
yeah,
He's like a
so
guy about my age.
exactly, yeah. So
Yeah.
Stevie, now I kind of remember who he's.
Races all over the world, and
Yeah, exactly. You see him like in the most
yeah.
random places around the world. You go bicycling in, I don't know, Tasmania, and then all
Yeah.
of a sudden it's like Steve's like, "Hey,
Yeah.
how you
Yeah.
doing, mate?"
Yeah.
So Steve was the first person to come to the site, and I remember saying to Steve that I've broken my jaw, and I obviously, like, my jaw was smashed to bits, and it was like, moving different directions, and like I in the same incident I bit my tongue in two, so like my tongue was hanging out, and nobody could make sense of what I was trying to say, but that's what I was trying to say, and
Yeah.
I thought I'd broken a few teeth, but obviously, like I kind of knew that it was really bad. And then a short moment after that, because my nose was such badly damaged, I couldn't breathe through my nose. And then because I bit my tongue into my tongue started swelling up.
No.
So, and then eventually it swelled up and it
Block
blocked my
your
air
airway.
passage. Yeah, my airways. And that's when I thought like I'm dying. And I had this like I don't know what you call in English, but everything just went white, and and warm, and I wasn't in pain at all. So those moments when you actually think you're gonna die, and then I don't remember a whole lot. I kind of have like a few like flashbacks from being in an ambulance and being in like a moving vehicle, and then there's just this like we would pull up and the car stops, and I'm like I can see that through the ambulance windows, and that I'm not under like a sky, I'm possibly under a building. It
Yeah.
kind of goes dark, a bit darker in the ambulance, and that's when things just go blank. I know absolutely nothing for like a couple of days probably. I don't know. I was in the hospital for 7 days in ICU in Sweden, I think, and then I got flown in like an ambulance airplane to Finland, and I was
Yeah.
probably another week in ICU, and then I got discharged to like a regular you know, like a regular room, and then I got actually discharged from the hospital relatively soon, considering how like severe the
Were.
accident was.
Yeah.
But I was able to, well, I wasn't able to actually speak because I had a trach, so
Yeah.
like the breathing pipe in my throat, and then like my jaws were wired together,
Yeah.
and like, you know, I had all of hardware going left, right, and center, and then I had like a, what is it, like a tube where they fed me,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, for, let's say, for you, for my girlfriend at the time, and for a lot of people, like my parents, my sister, they all flew to the hospital, and you know, nobody knew if I was brain dead,
Mm.
like, because I wasn't able to talk. You know, I could make some like signs, and there are a few, now it's funny, but there's actually, I can dig out. There's I've managed to write down, which was on a piece of paper, when uh, you know, my closest family knew that, okay, he's not dead, like he's okay. I asked, like, where's my Rolex?
No way.
Yeah, and I send it to you, and that's when they knew, like, okay, his brain is functioning
Yeah.
and he's making sense, because I
You've always loved
when
your
I
watches.
yeah, and because I went to the race, and I knew, like, I I obviously I didn't take my watch to the to like with me to the race site, but I left it in the hotel, like a hotel, like next to my bed,
Yeah, the cut in the drawer.
in the drawer, and they had taken it out. I don't remember anything like somebody saying, like, yes, we have it, but I did get the watch back, and yeah, but that was a, because I, you know, I'd written down all sorts of weird things on a piece of paper. But that was actually something, like, okay, his brain is functioning.
Yeah.
So now now it's quite funny, like,
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Uh, I mean, at
but
the
I
time,
I
it's
had a hell of a trip. Some of the shit that I remember from the hospital, like the drugs that they gave me, like the probably the worst memory from the hospital was that I was hallucinating really badly
yeah.
on some of the medication that they gave me.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, all the doctors had lizard heads, these
No
weird
way.
thing, they look like lizards. And the roof and the ceiling of my hospital bed, that was just full of snakes and spiders, like
Oh my.
crawling. And I was just freaking out in the hospital bed, just like panicking. But obviously, I couldn't move or say anything. So then I managed to write down on the piece of paper where it said snake and spider. And then they knew, like, okay, shit, this particular medicine that they've been giving me has a
Yeah.
side effect that some people might start hallucinating and seeing these things.
Yeah.
But obviously, I thought it was real.
Yeah.
So it was fucking so scary. And
Yeah.
I couldn't get out of it. And then because I had the trach,
Yeah.
they had to clean it.
Uh-huh.
And when these nurses had these lizard heads, and they were
Try.
like, somebody would like reach down to my throat, all I could see this lizard on my face with his hand going down to my throat. I thought they were like trying to strangle me.
Oh my God.
So but yeah, it was fucking gnarly. But then
Yeah.
soon as they got me off that drug,
Mm-hmm.
it got a lot better.
Right.
Like it was bad, but yeah, I was making progress. And then yeah, it's but those are like some of the funny, well, they're definitely not funny, sorry to
Oh,
say
but
that, but um
remember it.
memories that I have from the
Yeah.
hospital.
Yeah. I mean,
And
it obviously nothing like what you were going through, but it was for me it was, obviously you're riding for the team, but you're also a good friend at that point, and it was just yeah, it was awful to know to hear what happened, and to to having to deal with that. I don't know. Yeah, didn't know what to really do myself, other than try. I mean, I was actually was gonna just jump on a plane and come straight there, but um, my wife had just had Harrison was just been born, and she
Oh
was
yeah.
struggling a bit, and I was like, what do I do? And so I help get your girlfriend to the hospital. I thought you'd be much better with her in your capable hands than me flipping wobbling around, flipping probably would have tripped over and ripped the thing out your throat or something.
Oh, and I I think it for anybody that came to see me, it must have been an absolute like horrific
Yeah,
thing to see because they didn't know whether or not I was going to live
yeah, it's
or
horrific.
if I was going to come out of it. And I don't wish that upon to anybody to
No,
even have to see or um, to experience anything like it. And then how I can't even imagine how worried people were and
yeah,
like how like what you felt and it it
mum and dad and your girlfriend.
oh yeah, like my poor mom and dad, they must have been traumatized so badly because
Yeah,
um I have a 7-year old daughter now myself, and if like she wants to pursue a bike in one day, I'm like, I don't know, but
yeah,
yeah, like obviously it would be nice, but if anything to like
yeah,
happen to her, or I'd have had to take her to the hospital, or I I've traumatized myself that badly that
yeah,
I don't know how I'm gonna deal with like if my daughter one day would get injured, like how I would feel, and
yeah.
it yeah. I,
Yes.
I can't even describe it, but my poor mom and dad, like, that's all I can say. Like the amount of stress and sorrow that they'd had to go through with
Mm,
with me and worrying about me, and it must have been something else.
yeah. No, definitely, mate. And then it incredibly after that, I don't know. I had mixed feelings on it. Obviously, I wanted to help you with what you wanted to do, but you wanted to come back racing again after that. I mean, that's just insane to try to want to come back to racing World Cups after an injury like that. It's not just a broken arm or a broken leg or even a broken back. It's like you've literally nearly died and smashed your face into a million pieces. I,
Yeah.
I, I don't know. I don't know. I don't. It just shows how you know tough you are that you wanted to get back and not just ride your bike again, but to try and race at that level, and that's what you did. And then obviously you again you probably came back too early, and just now we
Uh,
can talk about it now. The post traumatic stress you had from that, it's just impossible to try and do what you tried to do.
and it was absolute madness that I went on to like, because when you rang me and I knew like my contract was up, so I knew like when the when I can talk, first of all, we have to have these conversations and see what the future plans are. And I said to you like, yes, I want to race, and pretty much the moment when I put the phone down, I was like, fucking hell, I've made the biggest mistake of my life. Like that was definitely not what I wanted to do, but
Yeah.
I just didn't know anything else,
Anything else? Yeah.
and I didn't want to. I didn't want to do anything else, but I definitely didn't want to race. But it was,
Yeah.
I was in such a mess.
Yeah.
And but now I think I made such a good recovery from that horrific injury because once again I set myself a goal.
Hmm.
Like I'm gonna make it to the World Cups and I'm gonna, race again.
Yeah.
But I was I didn't see it at the time, but I was depressed. I had
Yeah.
post-traumatic disorder, stress disorder. I was having flashbacks and, night terrors and all sorts of like weird things. And uh, in all honesty, I don't remember anything about that season.
Mm.
Absolutely nothing.
Not surprising.
Like I remember that we did some races and some World Cups. And for Val was the first World Cup.
Yeah.
And then after Cedric got injured when his brake failed, and he also nearly died on that accident.
Yeah.
When I heard that news, I just didn't want to ride.
No.
I did the bare minimum. I was so scared. I was
Mhm.
honestly scared of that track, like to
Yeah.
to ride it down, and I didn't want to be there.
Yeah. No surprise. It's
And like that
incredible, and
year, I did that year. I trained, but I did pretty much the bare minimum that I would get through a race weekend
mhm.
because I didn't want to be there. Like I wanted to be there because I didn't know anything else or
Yeah.
anything better,
But you
but
didn't
I
want
just
to.
did not want to race
Yeah.
because I was literally afraid.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, anybody would have been. I mean, I remember, when I injured my foot badly in 2002, and that's my foot, and I was never the same after that. I was never as brave. I used to have flashbacks about it, but what you went through, uh, it's just insanity trying to trying to trying to race again. And it's not even like it was your first bad injury. It was the worst injury, but you'd had loads of other injuries before, and each time you get injured and set back, it's just harder to come back again. And yeah, that I'll be
Absolutely.
honest, it was quite hard for me at some of the races, seeing you struggling, because I could see that you were struggling mentally as well as physically, and it was hard to see because I really cared about you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And a lot of pretty much everybody that knew me were worried about me.
Yeah,
But I think everybody was afraid to, sit me aside or sat me aside and tell me like, look, you you got to look after yourself. You
yeah,
can't go racing. You just can't.
yeah,
Um, but look, taking good from the bad is that I think I made a remarkable recovery.
you
In
did.
it took me, in all honesty, it took me about 3 years
Hmm.
before I was sort of properly healthy
Yeah,
after that injury. That because every time a year went by, I could like sort of gauge and look back. It's like, Jesus Christ, I was an absolute mess last year. I feel so much better now.
yeah,
And then another year went by, and I was looking back to the previous year, thinking like, whoa, like I was such a mess.
yeah,
And it actually took 3 years before I was sort of properly healthy.
yeah.
So that's yeah. But I also, well, it's hard to say because maybe if I would have not gone racing, maybe I would have, lost interest and didn't try to train and get fit and healthy again. I would have just, I don't drink to my sorrows and, do some other stuff,
Yeah.
which I still ended up doing, to be honest.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I mean,
trying to.
it's difficult, isn't it? You know, when you've, you know, when you raced at a high level from being a kid right through to an adult and having all that, you know, that success, and then things go the wrong way in later on in your career, and it's people don't understand how hard that is to deal with, isn't it? It's not like you just can jump into another job in a different bank or a different office. It's like your whole life has come to an end and you've got to restart it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and uh sort of the life after racing at this point was when I didn't know anything. It was like it was like the scariest thought ever. Like
Mhm.
I just didn't know. And I kind of, I would say I drifted around for years
Yeah,
before I sort of knew and started, where I'm at now. Like
yeah,
I, it was such a tough time, and there's not much of like a support network for an athlete when they stop.
no,
You're pretty much on your own,
mm,
and there's, unless you've lived through it yourself, you don't quite understand what an athlete, and it doesn't matter which sport it is.
no,
In every sport, there are people that they stop their career and they don't know what to do because that's all they've done for
yeah,
the whole life.
yeah, yeah.
And
It's hard.
it, it's I think nowadays it's much more openly talked about subject,
Hmm.
and there are, like, I wouldn't say there are like a support network, but it's an open subject, and it's an issue that is recognized, and people can get help, and there's people that you can go talk about, and yeah, the more people openly speak about it, the more awareness
Hmm.
um, this issue has, and hopefully there are any athlete who stop, they reach out and get help, and talk to somebody, because it is a lonely place.
Yeah,
You see, like, I didn't want to watch any races. I was just getting pissed off watching races, like, oh, that bastard, like, fucking hell, I would beat that guy and
yeah,
I would be there. And it took me quite some time before the realization hit, like, oh, okay, now I can watch races and sort of enjoy and not think about that I would beat this guy or that guy, and I would be so much better
yeah,
if I was healthy.
yeah,
Um, so, um,
yeah.
but
But you know, you've gone through all that heartache and injury stuff, Matty, and but you know, you've got to also look back and be super proud of what you achieved. You know, there's not many people get to win a downhill World Cup and come second overall to Sam Hill, and you know, ride for Honda and ride for the dream bike company as a kid, and you know, you've had a pretty amazing career.
yeah,
You know, and I'm super grateful to have been able to be a little part of your career, and you know, just get to know you, and you know, you, like I said, you're one of the favorite people I've ever met in my life. So
thank you.
you know, I mean that, and so what's obviously after racing and everything else now, what's day-to-day life for you at the moment? Obviously you've got your beautiful little girl.
Um, let's say it's a pretty, like, a boring office job that I do, but I'm still involved in the bike industry. So I work for this, like, a big distribution company called Psychoservice Nordic,
Hmm.
which is this distributor for SRAM, RockShox, Schwalbe, Michelin, Markov, uh, SKS, Crank Brothers,
Hmm.
Physique, to name
Wow.
a few.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's some big brands, and we are, the company covers Danish market, Norwegian, and Finland and Sweden.
Hmm.
So I worked in the sales department. And yeah, so, but obviously, yeah, it's all different now. Like, still in the bike industry, but it's as exotic as, you know, selling plastic fenders and chain loops and this and that. But
Yeah.
you know, I still keep in touch with like few people from the industry, and you know, get to ride bikes, get to build cool bikes.
Yeah.
But obviously I maybe would like to ride them a little bit more. But then, you know, I've pursued other interest in, you know, like riding motorbikes, and I picked up skiing, like
Yeah.
just stuff that I never got to do really that much when I was riding. And, you know, just yeah, pretty normal life. Like,
Yeah.
commute to my office where I worked at, the office at where I work is about 10-minute bike ride.
Okay.
But I still, yeah, don't, because the weather can be quite unpredictable. And, you know, when working at sales, you might have a customer's appointments and this and that. So I tend to drive most days to work. But when I
Yeah.
know like I don't have any meetings or anything like that, then, you know, then I'll cycle to work. And um but yeah, I'm trying to think of which discipline that I ride the most, but I would say probably gravel.
Yeah.
But, you know, drink posh coffee
And
and
go on your
ride
gravel bike.
gravel bikes. I'm not really into the mustache waxing and, you know, all that. But um, I think gravel riding is the discipline that I enjoy the most now,
Cool. Yeah.
because it's kind of like we have a lot of forest and like just trails in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of backcountry roads which are gravel.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like road riding, but without cars, and you don't need to stare at the average speed, you know,
Yeah.
that, oh, my average speed is dropping, because you know, cruising about, it's like, oh, okay, I'll go there. And, you
Yeah.
know, on the gravel bike, you might be able to occasionally, you can ride a bit of trails and go through the forest to catch like another scenic road to somewhere else. So
Yeah.
that's kind of cool. Like, I don't, that, to be honest, I don't enjoy riding bike parks that much, or gravity, because I know what it's like to, or what it could be to ride fast,
Yeah.
but I'm just physically not, you know, fit enough to
Yeah. That
ride a
level. Yeah.
pace that I would actually enjoy it.
Yeah. Sure.
Because I would like want to go fast,
Yeah.
but then it takes so much effort, and
Yeah.
like so like my skill level keeps going down.
Yeah.
And I can't really achieve. I don't really get that much
Achievement
excitement.
out of just cruising
Yeah,
down.
yeah, exactly. Like, I was at the bike park maybe last summer riding with my friend, and there was just this like really flowy trail
Yeah.
where it's just berms, 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 berms. You barely need to touch your brakes. And we got to the bottom of the lift, and I was like kind of just cruising with him,
Yeah.
and like my heart rate was like 110.
Yeah.
So basically, you know, my heart rate would go higher if I walk up the stairs to like
Yeah.
the third floor,
Yeah.
because I was, you know, I could be so relaxed
At
and
that
just
pace.
like just ride berms. It would be just like riding down on a road bike. I would like
Yeah.
just recover.
Yeah.
And but every now and again, I take the full suspension bike out of the shed and take it for a spin. But gravel is probably something which I do the
Where it's at.
most now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, fair enough. And you know that might change. You're still pretty young. You're not. You might in a few years' time you might change your mind and do a bit more biking. You've got plenty of time to decide. But what we definitely need to do is get together at some point this summer and go for a ride, whether that's gravel or mountain bike. I'm not bothered. I
or
just
motorbikes.
it'd be or what?
Or motorbikes.
Or motorbikes, yeah.
Yeah.
Just be nice
And
to catch up and get out for a ride.
but to be fair, if any bike that I would really like to and love to ride is a DH bike.
Well,
Like
why don't we try and make that
I
happen?
haven't ridden I've never ridden a proper like a modern downhill bike, a 29er. I've done maybe run or two
Yeah,
on somebody's bike, but I've never ridden when I since I stopped racing, I haven't ridden a proper downhill bike in over I think last time was 2013. So
yeah,
like in 11 years,
yeah,
I've not ridden a DH bike or had a downhill bike,
yeah. I've not
which
rode one much either.
which is pretty crazy. Like
Yeah,
to obviously modern trail bikes are
yeah,
better than the DH bikes and more capable than what we had
yeah.
15 years ago, but it would still be cool to have a double on the proper DH bike and see what it's like.
Well, let's try and make that happen.
I'll be 40 this year, so I could race the Masters Worlds.
There you go.
I didn't announce that I would, yeah, but it's in Kane, is it? Yeah, it's in
Yeah,
Kane this year.
it's a bit far for us to go to that one.
Yeah, and I would probably need to ride that bike at least on the parking lot before going down there. I think I would be scared to ride it like on a proper DH track.
Yeah, to be fair, I think I would. But I reckon, I reckon we could wing it if we had a few runs.
Yeah, I built when COVID started. I did have a like an intense M1 restoration project, and I raced that in an open class where you don't need to have a license. And so I built it up with like a correct parts at the time.
Yeah,
Bought them off eBay and just went through like old bike shops and garages and found all the right parts and raced it. And it was an eye-opening experience, and it really uh, go to show that because if you look at some of the old footage, you see everybody like just dragging their foot
yeah,
and just taking their foot out and like on every corner.
yeah,
But the old school Intense M1 was so unpredictable and such a short wheelbase that you had
yeah,
to. Because I
yeah.
tried to ride it with like my feet up and I just couldn't.
Yeah, where you guys took the piss out of me for taking my feet off all the time. You can see why.
Yeah, well, now I understood. I had to like try it myself and go like, oh, okay, this is why they drag their feet because the bikes are
Yeah,
like tiny and terrible and
yeah,
scary.
yeah. But it was good fun.
It was. It was definitely good fun.
Right. Well, we're about to run out of time on the camera again, Matty.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'd just like to say thanks so much for coming on. It's been lovely to catch up with you, and hopefully everyone will enjoy, the story of your amazing career and the ups and downs. And it's an incredible story. You should write a book on it. Um,
Maybe one day, yeah.
but yeah, we'll definitely catch up soon. But yeah, just a huge thank you. Hope everyone's enjoyed this. Please like, subscribe, and all the rest of the stuff you have to do. But enjoy. Hope you've enjoyed both episodes of Matti Lehikoinen, and yeah, thanks very much.
Cheers, Paigey. Thanks for
Cheers,
having me
Matty.
on. Yeah, cheers.
See you soon. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.